Week 2 of Huddle Up. I'm Paul. He's JT. Thank you for joining us here on Northwest Access TV. This is our second week of the show. Very excited to continue this on. I thought something would possibly go wrong, where it was like, I broke my arm, I can't, or something like that. Oh, I got a doctor's appointment, or oh, I forgot, I got to go, bring my mother to the airport. I thought something would come up where we'd be like, okay, it was a 1 week thing, and then we're done.
I don't like being a one-hit wonder, so it's all right.
No. So I'm glad we're back again. Today's episode will kind of last us a little bit. We are closed on Veterans Day next week on the 11th, but it's fine. We're going to try and keep our topics a little more broad so that you guys can enjoy this episode for a couple weeks until we're back.
Sounds good.
Couple things we want to just chat about real quick. Your unbeaten list. Last week you kind of broke down your unbeatens, those last 5 teams, and I think you said it's quite possible that 4 of those 5 teams could have, lost, finally received that L, and it was the reverse. Only 1 of 5 received it, and it was actually the one I didn't really think was gonna get it, was Green Bay.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting week. The Patriots definitely came out swinging, and they blew them out of the water, which I wouldn't have guessed that game would go the way it did.
Right. As a Pats fan, I definitely wasn't thinking it was going to go that way.
And I thought Denver and Green Bay was going to be a much tighter game, and Denver just blew them out of the water. I mean, they just did nothing. I mean, Aaron Rodgers threw for like 77 yards. I mean, you're not going to win a game doing that.
No. Does that kind of diminish his MVP talks, going up against the best defense in the league, arguably the best defense in the league, and really not coming out to show anything for it?
It definitely can. I mean, absolutely. I mean, MVP talk.
I know we're
still,
week 8, of the NFL season.
It still seems really early, just because right now there's still a lot of people in that talk. But I mean, for your unbeatens, I mean, Denver definitely looked good. They just signed Vernon Davis. That's going to be a huge plus to their offense.
For Peyton, absolutely.
I mean, Peyton loves tight ends. I mean, he loves them. He's all over them all the time. So that's a big plus for them. New England looked good. Looking at their schedule going forward, Jets are really the only team I can see playing tight with them. They have a good chance of going undefeated.
So you don't see that Denver game being a problem after Thanksgiving, because that's a Sunday night game in Denver. It's tough, right? Because right now you look at the offense that Peyton has, and you're like, they're not great, but they're still undefeated. And that defense has shown what they can do to someone like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
On that schedule. That's one of those games where at the beginning of the year I was like, no brainer, it's going to be fine. Now as the season progresses and you're showing how good this Denver defense is, it gets me a little worried as a Pats fan. Not so much from the defensive side, because I actually think that the Patriots defense can kind of hold their water against a team like Peyton and Denver's offense.
I think they can too. I think the big thing for the Patriots going into that game is their running game has got to be good. Deion Lewis is going to have a great game in that game. He's going to get a lot of checkdowns. He's going to get a lot of those tight little passes, and it's just going to be a matter of him breaking one of them to really open it up. I honestly think, as much as I hate to say it, I really do. I hate the Patriots. I just don't see them losing. I think they've got this made. I think the only time they're going to lose is if they just bench everyone and say, we have it anyway.
Which they haven't done in, 15 years?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think they've got a pretty easy road. Denver will be a tough game. I think the Jets are actually a harder game for them, as odd as that is to say. You've got Carolina. They look fantastic. I mean, their offense struggled a bit, but it was pouring out, so we'll give them a little slack for that.
Right.
Cincy, they look good. They're only getting better. But the thing for them is still what they can do in the playoffs. I mean, they've been good in the regular season for years.
And they haven't proven anything in the playoffs for as long as I've been really paying attention to the NFL.
So, I mean, we'll see what they can do. I mean, they could be really good. Denver, they have a good chance. I mean, their offense is definitely getting better.
And with the addition of Davis as well,
I think that's going to
be it.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's going to be a huge addition. I think the undefeateds are kind of the undefeateds. There's not a whole lot of leeway for them. I think they're all kind of got a pretty good shot of proving themselves and getting themselves all the way there. You've got a lot of teams that are really, really bad. You have a lot of.
So let's talk about them a little. Let's talk about the almost defeated. When you're talking about the Indianapolis Colts, the Colts have recently fired their offensive coordinator, and this is that offensive coordinator that you would say would be probably the best bet for you. This is a guy that worked with Andrew Luck at Stanford for 3 years, was his quarterback coach in college, now is his offensive coordinator. You would think it'd be a good marriage, but apparently Indianapolis sees it otherwise.
Well, for starters, yeah, he has a lot of experience with Andrew, but he doesn't have a lot of experience with the other guys. And this is the NFL, not college, different game. You know, the one thing I feel bad for him for is that, you know, these coaches are getting a lot of flack for stuff that's out of their control. Andrew Luck is hurt. If you want to try to pretend that he's not, you're on crack. I mean, this guy is hurt. He's playing hurt. The stories about the shoulder, the broken ribs, you can see him being hurt in these games.
Well,
I mean,
he was
he
earlier
does
this
not
year
look
as
healthy.
well.
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame the bad offense on that. This guy's thrown more picks this season than he has in his career. I mean, he looks awful. And it's sad to see that coach be blown up for it because it's simply not his fault. You're playing with an injured quarterback. He's not playing well. Not his fault. I mean, there are other things that have gone wrong, but I mean, a lot of that's on the quarterback play.
I guess it's kind of like that no excuses thing, though. I understand your quarterback is hurt, but you're also the offensive coordinator. There are other things that you can set up and do to revolve around your revolve around your quarterback to help your team at least compete.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at that, and I think the perfect instance of that is you go over to Tennessee, who fired their head coach, and they didn't even try to change anything. They didn't try to change offensive coordinator or who's making the play calls or who's making the defensive calls, and they're without their starting quarterback, and you're just canning him. I mean, they've played well.
He's doing the best he can with what you've given him, and there's still nothing to show for it. I think it's a little. I don't know if it's if this is usual for the NFL, or I'm just actually a little more focused on the season. But it seems very early to start canning offensive and defensive coordinators and head coaches if you're in week 7, week 8, to try and trying to save this season, because even in Miami they get rid of Philman.
Yeah, I don't think that's too early, though.
You don't think that was?
Oh,
and
no.
that was week 4.
That was just atrocious. They went out and spent thousands and millions of dollars on players. They had a good team. They had all the things, and here they are. They're pretty much clicking again. I mean, last week was a little bit of a slip up,
but to get into that, you have a coach that you fire Philman and you bring in this other coach. He wins both games, his first 2 games, but they're against Tennessee and they're against Houston. I mean, that's the bottom of the pile when it comes to NFL teams. And then you come to, because Tennessee doesn't have their starting quarterback, and Houston has just been atrocious at the quarterback position as well. They don't know which direction to go. But then you go against a team that's actually good in the Patriots and competitive in the Patriots, and you get smoked. So does it really show a lack of management that the Dolphins have?
I think it did, and the reason why I think it did is because the difference between the way that offense clicked in those 2 games that they won, the way that offense clicked was just completely different from how they were prior with the other coach. You know, playing against the Patriots, the thing that killed them was their offensive line. They were atrocious. They got murdered nonstop. So, I mean, it was a bad game for them, but there were still pluses to it. They still moved the ball really well. They still got down the field. They just couldn't finish it off, which you didn't even see before the coaching change. So I think there are positive notes there. I mean, we'll see what happens with Tennessee. We'll see what happens with Indianapolis. I mean, I don't see anything changing in Indy because Luck's playing hurt. I mean, until he's healthy, I mean, that just is what it is.
What do you think the future is for their coach this year? I mean, depending on what their ending result of their schedule becomes.
I tell you, I think the 2 coaches that have the biggest fear going through the rest of the season are going to be Lovie Smith down in Detroit. How he still has a job boggles my mind. I mean,
I mean, Detroit's won 1 game so far this year,
and he's had a good record in the past, by all means, and he still has a similar team to what he's had, but their offense is atrocious. He had to make a change. They didn't. I mean, he's got to go in my eyes. And then, oh man, talk about a name blank. Who's the other coach that's got to go? Oh, Indy. Head coach, got to go. You have to make changes where necessary. Is Luck a great quarterback? Yes. Is Luck the best quarterback hurt? Clearly not.
Clearly.
Let him sit, let him stay out. When Hasselbeck came in, he played well. Let him get healthy. I'm sick of watching these teams put these players in and ruin their careers because they're playing hurt. Rex Ryan's about to do it with Tyrod Taylor. We watched RG3 careers get completely ruined. He will never be a starting quarterback ever again in this league. And here we are. We're going to start Tyrod Taylor this week with a bum knee, and he's saying that there's no risk of getting hurt again. Are you kidding me? It's a bad knee. Yeah, there is.
And you're in the NFL, and it's not like
and he's a
it's
running
running
quarterback.
quarterback. He does well when he gets to run outside the pocket and spread the field out. And it's not like the Bills have all these offensive weapons that he'll be able to play with.
No.
He's going out there. He's going to have to be that playmaker. And if you're doing that on one leg, it's nearly impossible in the NFL with the speed that these defensive players have.
And it takes one hit, and as a running quarterback, you're 100 times more likely to get that hit. And it's just sad to see. Obviously these players are getting paid millions of dollars to play this game, and they earn their spot. They want to help their teams win, but it's a mix between the ownership and coaching and the player of saying, I'd rather have you be good next year than ruin you
for this
year.
And especially where the Bills are with their situation. I mean, they're 3-4. By no means are they completely out of playoff contention.
Correct.
But in the AFC East, when you have the Jets that are starting to put a little something together, and then you have the Patriots as well of where they are. I mean, because if we get with some teams that they're already deciding by week 8 to start making coaching decisions that it's going to reflect the rest of the year. Is now a good time to start doing that looking forward to next year with players? And that's something like Tyrod Taylor to say, sit down, let's look forward to next year.
In that case, obviously, it's the same thing that goes back with Washington, is they were in the hunt. There was reason for him to try, but
that was later in the season, too.
That was
the second half of the season where you only had like 2 or 3 games left, and they were like, let's risk it, let's have him in there. You're not looking at that. Now you're 3-4. Is it really a time to start risking what you want to be eventually your franchise quarterback?
I don't think it is, and the reason why I say that is because the rest of the team isn't healthy either. Sammy Watkins can't get on the field. Percy Harvin, did he retire yet? Is he even going to play?
Right.
Your main 2 offensive weapons are now gone. You've got McCoy, who's been battling the hamstring injury. You know what?
That's what I'm trying to say. With a player like this, to have him go out there and try and put the team on his back on one leg is very difficult to do.
If you want him to be your franchise quarterback, get him off the field.
So let's talk about another franchise used-to-be quarterback that is over on the West Coast with Colin Kaepernick, now benched.
Yep.
And now in his place you have Gabbert. Is it weird to say that? Like you're like coming in for relief of Colin Kaepernick is Gabbert. What is San Francisco thinking? I mean, I understand they cut their ties with Harbaugh, and they had 4 to 5 defensive players, leave because of either it was injury or retirement, and now you going into the season with Kaepernick, and it's just not working. And your savior and your saving grace is Gabbert. I know it's weird to say.
Hearing his name as the starting quarterback is just kind of a frightening thing. So if you're a San Francisco fan, I'd look at this and go, well, season's over. That was fun.
Right. Well,
let's find another team.
You're 2-6. The other teams in your division between the Cardinals, Rams, and Seahawks are 3 teams that you really don't want to see on any given Sunday because anything can happen with those teams. So when you have a team like San Francisco that's really showing nothing, it's that Hail Mary by the coaching staff, right?
It is. Is it the wrong move? I don't think so. Kaepernick
and then you just got rid of Davis.
You lose Davis.
So now you got Gabbert coming in. He doesn't have one of your better offensive threats. And not saying that Davis has been putting up great numbers this year, but he's been a staple in San Fran for a while now.
Yeah. I think it's the right move. I think they're clearly looking at this going, all right, our head coach is gone. Our offensive team from the past is now gone. Our defensive team from the past is now gone. We'll rebuild. They're done. They're giving Gabbert a shot just to see what he can do. I don't think they have any high hopes. I think they're just kicking the season done and we'll look at the draft. I mean, that's what they got for the trade for Davis's draft picks.
Right.
You know, they're just looking to rebuild at this point and see where they end up.
Now it's now Hasselbeck for Indy is Matt or Tim? Matt. Okay, so Tim Hasselbeck, I couldn't remember which one it was. Tim Hasselbeck had just said on ESPN earlier this week that it's like Dwayne Gabbert. That Gabbert is the worst quarterback he has ever seen play. That's a lot to put on a quarterback, to say to a professional quarterback, to have that being said about you from a professional, not only former football player, but a current NFL analyst, that you are the worst football quarterback you've ever seen. And I think some people are forgetting there's still Tim Tebow. I mean,
I'd rather have Tebow than Gabbert any day.
Everyone's calling the worst. So I mean, Tim Tebow, pick up the phone. San Fran's calling. It's nice on that beach.
Hey, I hate the fact that Tim Tebow's no longer in the game. I think he played with a lot of heart. Was he the perfect quarterback? No. But did he win? Yes, he did.
And isn't that really what it's about? It's about putting the W's up on the board. Who cares how you do it? And I wish that a team would take a chance on someone like that. And I was very excited a couple years ago when the Patriots did that as well, and they brought him into camp. He didn't end up making the 53-man roster, but it was a lot of fun to see how he would contribute.
Yeah.
And we actually thought, myself included, that he would kind of be on that that fullback or running back type of option that you could have, because he's a very quick guy and he's extremely strong. I just wish that they were able to integrate him somewhere. I mean, now you can listen to him on the SEC network and
the
college
reason
ball.
He doesn't want to do that, which is why he didn't.
Right, he wants to be an NFL quarterback, and he said that out loud many a times, that I'm here to become an NFL quarterback, and he just doesn't have that option.
What's sad is San Francisco call him, because would he work for their offense? Absolutely.
Right.
They have a running style. They want a mobile quarterback. Gabbert is never going to be that. I mean, he's just atrocious.
That's what you have in Kaepernick. You have a lefty throwing, running quarterback. Tim Tebow, I'm calling your name, man.
He would be a great fit. San Francisco, make the move. There's all sorts of stuff. I mean, and the NFL this week is going to be, or for the rest of the season, is getting really interesting with a lot of high value players going out. I mean, we just talked about quarterbacks that are playing injured, and Sammy Watkins and McCoy. You've got Le'Veon Bell out for the rest of the season.
These injuries have just been huge. This week alone was such a big hit to the NFL. When you're talking about Bell, you're talking about Steve Smith Jr. The thing, what was the other one that we were just talking to? Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen is huge for San Diego right now. I mean, he was third, I think, in receptions and yardage so far this year through week 8.
I think he actually had the most receptions.
So I mean, you're looking at a guy that is the offense for San Diego.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's a tough division for them to win as well.
Absolutely. And his backups have been hurt. I mean, Stevie Johnson's been hurt. I mean, he's been playing a little bit, but I mean, he's still been hurt. Malcolm Floyd looked good last week, but still just got off injury as well. So, I mean...
And you just got Gates back off injury, and he's kind of been off and on. He was great his first week back, and then since then it's been like, okay, where's Antonio Gates? A game that had my interest, and this was great. I saw you got daylight savings time this past week, and we're watching the game, and I'm like, man, it's getting kind of late, and the game's still going on. I'm like, wow, it feels like it's 6 o'clock, and the game is still going on, and it's really only like 4:30. And I'm watching the Giants in New Orleans go back and forth, go back and forth, go back and forth. And what a fun game to watch. If you love offense in the NFL, for me, when it comes to baseball, MLB, I want to see a pitcher's duel. I'm old school like that. That's what I want. I want to see pitchers go back and forth and a lot of defense. When I watch football, I want to see touchdowns, touchdowns, touchdowns. You couldn't ask for a bigger game between these two games. It's as if the defenses, they weren't even there. Let's just have the offenses go out there and just throw to each other.
Well, so, all right, let's be positive here for a minute on these two teams. Drew Brees threw 39 for 50, 505 yards, and 7 touchdowns, 2 picks. Ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, game of his life. You look on the other side with Eli, where did 30 for 41 for 350 and 6.
6 touchdowns.
Hey, and let's look at this. For the first time, I had to kind of like double check my stats going, he didn't throw a pick? Really?
Eli
didn't throw a pick? I'm like, that doesn't happen. So offensively, fantastic. I mean, the one thing that I kind of was surprised about with the Giants is Odell OBJ had 3 touchdowns in the first. I think all 3 of them were in the first
half.
Where'd he go? That's been the
Right.
story all year long. He gets thrown to in the first half, and then he just disappears. Well, guess what? The defense still wasn't there. I mean, they still sucked. So what happened?
Well, the defense did actually pick New Orleans, picked Breeze off for a touchdown late in the game.
The Giants defense. I was talking about.
New Orleans defense. Yeah, it's not like they got any better.
No.
They were still letting up touchdowns. But you're right, Odell Beckham. It's just like he goes ghost town for the second half, which is funny because when you look at if you're a fantasy player, a regular fantasy player, you'll kind of notice that most of your stats do come in the second half. It's like first half of football, you're watching, you're like, man, my team's terrible. No one's catching the ball. Nobody's running it. And then the second half, you're like, oh, here are my points. They start to come at me.
If you're the all-star, the second half is where you have to shine, not the first half.
And it's not like that 10-minute meeting in the locker room at halftime. It's like all of a sudden New Orleans goes, oh, we got it. Now we know how to cover them. That doesn't happen. You have weeks of game plan for a certain team. You're doing it the entire game. You're not doing it for just half a game.
No, and Odell is one of those players that you just can't cover. I mean, he is that good. People who want to say that he's not, stop talking because he is that good.
His range of catchability is just, it's insane. I think when they were doing sports science with Chad Johnson way back in the day, they were showing how far he could reach in a single stance up into the size. I think it was twice the size of an elephant, which is really crazy to think about. And you got to assume when you look at someone like Chad Johnson, now you look at someone as talented as OBJ, it's got to be even bigger.
Oh yeah.
How much range he has to catch a ball, it's uncoverable.
Oh yeah, it is. I mean, his hands are huge. He's got great hands to go along with it.
And the vertical as well.
And his vertical is unreal. I mean, the guy can out-jump anybody. So I'm really curious to know why that offense doesn't go there in the second half. Their running still sucks. I mean, they're still atrocious. I think they ran for like 50-something yards. I mean, not that New Orleans was much better. I mean, they only ran for 80. But
there's still a mix of running backs with the Giants as well, correct? So, I mean, going back and forth, I mean, you have, I mean, when you have someone like the Patriots, I'm sorry to go back to that, but that's what's fresh in my memory. I'm a Pats fan. I mean, they kind of have almost shut the book on LeGarrette Blount, and they're playing Deion Lewis nonstop when they want to actually run, but they're sticking to the one running back, as opposed to a team like the Giants where they're throwing, this guy, they're going this guy, they're going this guy. And how can you get into a rhythm if you have so many running backs playing the game?
No, and I mean, that's absolutely right. And we've seen that for years with every team that does split backs. Cincinnati doing it now. But you look at, all right, let's go back a little bit. Let's go old school Carolina with D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart. Hey, look at them now. Together, they really did nothing. Now that they're both single backs, they're both having great years.
Right.
Newsflash, one running back, let it work. Obviously, you want to give them a rest and that kind of stuff, but you don't need to run both all game long. Third down or giving them a break, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
let a running back get into
There's nothing been
flow.
wrong in the years that I've been watching football where you have that third down back. There's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean you always have to run with them on third down.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can bring them in, and that's just the way it is. You have a goal line running back, then you have a goal line running back. Then you have other teams that have like an Adrian Peterson that he could run the entire game if he absolutely wanted to, and they choose not even to do that. They bring someone else in for the goal line, which is funny. Or you have someone like Marshawn Lynch where you don't run him in the 1 yard line to win a Super Bowl, and you end up throwing it instead. Why bring him in?
Yeah. But let's go back to the Giants here. Talking about these two defenses. The fact they're both 4-4 with the way they're playing is insane. They should lose every game of the year. Looking at what they have going forward, New Orleans has a pretty easy road. I mean, they have a couple of tough games, but they have a pretty easy road. And when you look at the Giants, all right, let's be realistic. The NFC East, I mean, as a football fan, my team plays for the NFC East. I'm an Eagles fan. They should just cut that division out.
Well,
get rid of all of them.
Right, and you say that
awful.
your team. I mean, currently while we're taping the show, they're 3-4. They're only they're only a game back.
No,
in the division,
and they're probably looking the best to come out of it.
Right.
I mean, outside of Washington has a good chance too. Giants, they have a tough schedule coming up.
Dallas, they need Romo back. I mean, clearly.
Which for starters, I mean, he is back practicing this week, so I mean that's a big plus for them.
Sign.
So I mean, they're going to get healthy again. They'll play better. But I think the Giants are just atrocious. They have nothing going for them that's positive. No, their offense clicked, but your offense isn't going to be on the field that much because you're going to play a team with a better defense than the New Orleans Saints every week. Minus this week, they do have a nice matchup up against Tampa Bay.
Hey, I fully admit I had Eli Manning sitting on my bench before the week had started, and I said, hey, they're playing New Orleans. That's a terrible defense. I'm going to put him in, and go figure. He throws up like 50 points for me. Did I win? No, but is it the right matchup? Yeah, because New Orleans doesn't have a great defense. You should win games like that.
Yeah, you should. I see the Giants really dying here. I don't think they have much life left in them. I think that as of right now, the Eagles are better than them. They've already beaten them once. They're going to play them again. Washington is better than them. They're going to play them again. Dallas is going to be an interesting story because, if they can get Romo back, they're a different team by every imagination, and they're looking good. Castle is getting there, and the NFC East is just so bad that any one of those teams can come out.
Is it funny that as a non-NFC East fan, and people at home chime in 527-6449, we are a live call-in show. Is it funny as someone that's not an NFC East fan, I actually enjoy watching these games because I want to see how badly it ends up. Like
so
at the end, and it's usually the end of the game. It's usually like the last 5 minutes. It's like sit back, grab your popcorn, and watch this horror film. See where it goes. It's the Giants. It always comes down to the last minute. The Dallas, I see it on social media as well through friends where they're like, why do I even watch this team? Why do I even do this? And same thing, Philadelphia as well. It's just all the teams. They find a way to lose towards the end of the game, and like I said, for a non-NFC East fan, I'm like, this is great. Let's watch to see how this turns out.
I think that with the Giants, they've lost several games with the last drive of the game. They're awful. Tom Coughlin, get rid of him. See you later. You've had a great career.
Not Tom Coughlin, not the second coming of Bill Belichick.
Nah, he's
which
done.
Is ridiculous.
Get rid of him. Listening to him in interviews after the game is pathetic. I mean, you lose these games. You do. You make bad calls. You make bad plays. Get off the field. And I think, honestly, the worst team in the NFC East is the Giants. Every game that they've blown at the end. The games that they've gotten blown out have been just atrocious. And I think if Dallas gets healthy, I think both Washington and Philly are better. And I think if Dallas does get healthy, I think they can have that potential to move all the way back up into first place in that division and own it. I think Philly
isn't, again, saying much.
No,
we're talking about the NFC East. It's like Dallas wins NFC East. It's almost like, okay, you won second place. Here you go. Good job.
But
good luck in the first round against whoever.
Hey, but if you take first place, you're still getting there because at the end of the day, if there was anybody else in that division, none of you would make the playoffs.
And the team that is going to win the NFC East, I mean, you're looking at first round and good luck.
Yeah.
It's about as far as you're going to get. You're not going to have a team that's going to ramble off seven wins from where they are right now.
No, not at all. And I like I said, I think Philly and Washington have the best chance in that division as of right now. Depending on how long it takes Romo to get back and healthy, I think they could take first place, but it depends on how long he has to sit. I mean, obviously at 2-6 or 2-5, they got a lot of work to do, but not much because New York's only 4-4.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that.
All right, let's take a time out on football. Let's get to another sport that's really starting to pick up. We're talking basketball. I'm not the greatest basketball expert. I would say that's probably one of my worst sports. I'll probably watch hockey before I watch a basketball game. But we got one of my favorite seasons coming up is NCAA basketball. Yeah. Like I said, I'm far from an NBA fan, but you put a couple college teams in front of me, I love it because they're playing to prove something as opposed to NBA player. In my personal opinion, they're playing for a paycheck. They're not playing to go anywhere. And that's not for everybody, but that's just my own personal opinion. So I love watching basketball because it's almost like watching the minors of NBA.
Oh, it is. It's fantastic. These kids play with such heart. They don't stop. They don't quit. The coaches have so much influence on these kids. And you have such different styles of play throughout each team. Mm-hmm. You look at, I'm a big Duke fan. I'm a big Syracuse fan, as I'm from Syracuse. But you look at Duke and how they play. Do they have one and dones come in? Yeah, they do. But their team is still based off keeping players for years and years and years.
And that has a lot to say about the coaching staff and the way he recruits as well.
Oh, absolutely. Coach K is fantastic with that. And I mean, you're never going to not have one and dones come into programs like that because they're going to win, which is what those players want to do. They want to win. So they want to get there, they want to win, and they want to move on.
Right.
But when you look at teams like Kentucky, who is right up there, pre-ranked second.
Right, we're talking about the USA Today coaches poll that came out as of the week of November 2nd.
Yep. And you look at that team, which that team has sent 3 freshmen to the NBA after 1 year of playing every year for like the last 4 or 5
3
years.
or 4 years? Yeah, right.
I mean, they play off freshmen, and newsflash, they don't win. Do they win a lot of games? Absolutely. But do they cut down that net?
No.
No, they don't. You need...
They've done it once in the last... Since Calipari's been there.
He did it once. You need those upperclassmen. You need that experience. You need those people to build that team. And it's not necessarily that they have to play more. I mean, if you want to start a bunch of freshmen, that doesn't necessarily change anything. But you need those upperclassmen to teach. And their entire team is always freshmen and sophomores, and then they're gone. Are they great players? Absolutely. But
I think that says a lot for a coach like Krzyzewski, where his recruitment really, from what I've been able to read, really isn't about come to me and win a championship and get to the NBA. It's come here and be that student athlete, play 4 years, and let's win some championships. Let's not just win one. Let's win a handful of them while you're here. And I think that goes a long way for these players, that you get to build that upperclassmen stability, instead of having freshman after freshman after freshman.
Oh,
and don't get me wrong, it seems to be working with Calipari in a place like Kentucky, but the end result, you're not gaining those championships. You're gaining it once in a while.
Yeah. You know, I look at Coach K, and like I said, I'm a Duke fan. I definitely have favoritism there. But they're a team that, let's look at J.J. Redick. Played 4 years. He was fantastic. I didn't even think he was really good enough for the NBA. He's blown it up in the NBA. And what does he contribute to? Coach K. Players learn from him more than you can learn from...
But keep in mind, it did take Redick a long time in the NBA to get where he is today.
Oh, it did. But, I mean, Coach K is fantastic. Watching him on the sideline, you know, he's very animated, he's very vocal, but at the same time, he shows such appreciation and, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. He has such love for each one of his players.
Right.
You know,
that's clear. That's clear when he's even talking about them in an interview, or if he's talking about them in a documentary, or just in passing with a newspaper. You can tell that he's very passionate about every single kid that he takes on to his onto his roster.
It is, and you know,
and I don't think that's taking away anything from any other player as well. I'm sure that Calipari is the exact same way when you come to Kentucky, or with North Carolina as well. No, it's not Calhoun. I'm thinking the wrong guy.
No.
But you have these coaches. I guess you just don't really see it like you do in someone like Coach K.
No, and you know, like I said, I'm a Syracuse fan too, and looking at Jim Boeheim and what he has done with his programs. He's only won that one championship with Carmelo, but for the most part, he's had nothing but 4-year players, and they've been rocking it out, and he does a great job with it, minus all the controversy going on. This year should be an interesting year to watch that program, as they're down scholarship players and not going to be as good as they have been in the past. But you look at one of the things that I find funny, which you find in every sport, there is that certain division that is just loaded with not only talent, but with competition. The ACC owns college basketball.
It has for a while, too.
They're unbelievable. And the teams that have changed and gone into them, North Carolina and Duke, fantastic, have been for years. Add in Maryland. Let's go, all right, well, now we're going to add in Syracuse and... who else moved over?
Villanova's still in the Big East, right?
Yes. Who else moved to the ACC? Oh, boy. But anyway, if you can make it out of the ACC, you're in good shape. I mean, the ACC puts the most amount of teams into the March Madness tournament, and at the end of the day, you look at a team that gets beat up in the ACC, and they can win it all. And the reason for it is because the ACC is so good. They are unbelievable. Now you look at the Big East, which used to be a dominant program or dominant division, and yeah, there's maybe one team that might come out of that, but that's about it. And for a lot of these teams, I mean, you look at who they play. Kentucky, every now and then they have a somewhat challenging season, but their division they own. I mean, they just kill them all. I mean,
and I feel like they're not also playing. They have their own little their own division, but I feel like the teams that Kentucky plays isn't at the same caliber as you have someone like a Duke or North Carolina or Maryland. They're playing these teams that are constantly ranked. Then you have Kentucky that's playing like Western Kentucky that, you know, it won't be ranked for years and years to come. It seems to be harder for Kentucky to prove themselves as a top-notch program, even though they have that title, granted, but because they're not playing everyone. It's kind of like strength and schedule when we're talking college football, that this committee now is going to start looking at your strength of schedule, who have you beat and how well have you competed against them, rather than, oh, yeah, you're undefeated.
Yep. You know, it takes a huge part into it, and I think with a lot of these teams, they play in the beginning of the season when they go and they do all these tournaments all over, and that's like their first chance of playing this pre-ranked good team. And you have teams that are consistently doing it. You have Michigan, Duke, Purdue, Butler, North Carolina, Ohio even. They're playing in these tournaments where there are multiple pre-ranked top 25 teams that you're bound to go head-to-head with. A lot of these teams don't. And the thing that shocks me really is, you know, all this talk about having those upperclassmen, those juniors and those seniors on your team. You look at the teams in March Madness over the last few years that have had those upperclassmen. Cornell, 2 years ago, they were fantastic. What they start with? 5 seniors. You know, are they any good anymore? No, they're awful. But they were good because they had upperclassmen. You looked at...
and I'm sure a lot of it has to do with the fact that they were 5 freshmen, 5 sophomore, 5 junior, and now they're still together as 5... I mean, you could put 5 freshmen and start them for a team like Kentucky, and then you put 5 seniors for another lower class team. Who's going to have the better chemistry?
Yep.
And that has a lot to do in college basketball, and you see that too.
Oh, it does. So. It has everything to do with it. I mean, chemistry on the court is huge, and you see a lot of those teams that are willing to take those high-risk players that are a little bit troubled outside of the court or bring in that attitude. Think of DeMarcus Cousins, for instance. Even when he played for college, he was a hothead. He had those issues. And if you're willing to take in that kind of a player, you're bound to run into some chemistry issues because you're not going to click in the locker room and you're not going to click on the floor. And that's vital for college basketball. I mean, basketball, I guess all sports really. I mean, it's a timing thing. You're throwing that ball down into the lane. People aren't even looking, but you have to know that that's where it's coming from. He's going to be there. You're going to be there. I mean, you have to have that, which is one of the things that makes college basketball so fun to watch, because you get such a short amount of time to build a chemistry to do what you can do. And minus these players are very, very gifted. And there's a lot of teams out there that are going to be very good this year. And what I've enjoyed a lot in the last couple of years is that there has not been that school that is just murdering everybody.
Right.
You look at women's college basketball and you look at Jim Calhoun and what he's done with the UConn Huskies. I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch one team win 13 out of 15 seasons. No, I want to watch anyone.
Unless you're in Connecticut in the Hartford area, then I want it all the time. I don't want it to ever stop. So we have we have that level of college ball. There's also we have a different level of college ball, and also even closer to home here in Franklin County, BFA and MVU are starting up basketball and very shortly, and their season's going to start taking off, and as well as UVM down in Burlington as well.
UVM does start November 13th against Eastern Michigan. They are at Eastern Michigan, so it's a away game, but I'm excited to see that start. We do love UVM. They've had years where they've been right there, and they've had years where they've struggled a little bit. I'm not really sure where they're going to be this year, so I'm excited to watch that. As I was telling you before the show, I can't wait to watch the high school games and watch how these guys play. On this show, we'll talk a lot about it. We'll focus on them, and we'll give a lot of these players a lot of time on the air to really.
Right, absolutely. That's one thing we wanted to bring to the table with Huddle Up is to be able to, for John and I, to be able to go to these games. Do some commentary for Northwest Access TV and do a little play-by-play as well. And while we're doing that, we're able to analyze the players and the competition throughout Vermont and who BFA and MVU are playing on the basketball court, as well as some of our other commentators will hit the hockey rink as well for MVU and BFA. We're also very excited to be expanding our coverage, something that JT didn't know about. We'll be going to Richford and Enosburg as well.
Nice.
To reach up to their basketball teams. So we're very excited about partnering with those two schools as well to be able to go do that. And I love the fact that we'll be able to see the young talent where they are right now. Because one thing I really enjoyed last year when I was really into local football was being able to watch Robert Kelly, quarterback for BFA last year, who's now playing at UNH or played at UNH this year. He didn't get to play at all this year as a kicker. That's what he went in as a kicker and punter. As a freshman, you don't really expect that. They had a senior that was playing. And I really loved watching those box scores and seeing his name there at least. You know what I mean? I love to be able to watch the players now
and
follow them and see where they go, because you don't know who's going to come out of this group in the 4 schools that we're going to be covering. Someone might go to a D3 or D2 school that you can't help but look up the box score and see how well they do.
No, absolutely. And that's what all this stuff is about. I mean, that's what public access is about. It's about knowing your hometown, knowing the kids that are out there that are moving forward, and knowing what they can do and how they're doing. And that's what I'd love to get into. I'd love to really focus on those kids. I mean, we all like professional sports, and we'll obviously still talk about them. But I'd love to really focus on these kids and be able to, have little interviews and spend time with them one-on-one and kind of follow their seasons and follow their careers. As this show continues, and hopefully we can, maybe have that opportunity to watch some of these kids play in college and see what they can do. And it'd be a lot of fun. I mean, obviously, as hometown people they'd love the opportunity to see their kids on the next level and follow them just the same. So.
And I know that we have a lot of feedback of people loving that they love to watch the replays of the sports on Northwest Access TV, and that's just something else we're going to give to them this winter season with tons of basketball, tons of hockey, so they can relive some of these games. I know that MVU girls hockey, they went very far last year, and it was a lot of fun for people to be able to watch on Northwest Access some of their wins and some of their big games. So that's something we definitely want to keep doing. Also, the same thing with the Essex BFA girls basketball, the BFA girls basketball team when they were playing Essex in the semifinals. Finals or semifinals. It's a fun ride for us because we feel like we are part of Franklin County. We are Franklin County Public Access. You're our team as much as the parents are to the students as well.
Oh, absolutely.
We bleed the green, gold, blue and white, and whatever colors Richford and Enosburg are. Sorry for if I don't know.
I laugh at it. I mean, as a parent, my daughter's only 6. I'm hoping that she gets into sports, and I can't wait to be that parent on the sideline and go to the games and have that fun. But even not as a parent to a kid that's on those that is playing in these sports, it's fun to watch. It's fun to get into, and you have respect for them and you want to watch them grow. And this year is going to be a lot of fun to do it.
You're just jinxing yourself. You're going to every ballet recital possible in Franklin County.
Hey, I go to dance after this, so I know all about it.
One thing, speaking of basketball, and we'll just go a little bit to the pros here. I had a comparison the other day that I wanted to kind of run by you and see what you thought, and get those wheels turning. So the other day I'm watching just one of the games. It was Cleveland was playing, And LeBron's laying off to the side, and he's laying down, stomach down, back up, back spasms. And all I could think of was like, wow, that is so comparative to Larry Bird towards the end of his season. And I got to thinking about it like, okay, when Larry Bird was ending his season, there was another man that was just starting to skyrocket in Michael Jordan. I mean, that's 86, 87 is when it started to transition towards the Jordan era, even though he didn't win his championship till was it 91, 92, something like that. But when I look at LeBron in his age and where he is right now, is there the next big superstar comparative to someone like Bird passing it off to Jordan, LeBron passing it off to who?
That's really hard.
It's a tough question, right? Because I personally, in my opinion, I don't think there is one. You could say someone like a Stephen Curry,
but he's still
but he's not
LeBron
that.
era.
But he's not that player, right? He's still LeBron era. So who is so young and someone that everyone is focused on right now that could be that next superstar LeBron era? Or are we going to see one for a while?
We are. I mean, you know, with how much we talk about sports, I hate comparisons. I can't stand it. I think there are era players that are really good, but eras are different. So
that's why I'm trying. That's why I have it as okay. Bird with the back spasm, and that's like I said, it just kind of clicked in my head. I was like, oh, you know, that kind of reminds me of Larry Bird, and I went, gee, I wonder who LeBron James, Michael Jordan is going to be.
Yeah.
Who's that next level guy that LeBron James is going to pass that torch over? Because honestly, I thought it was Kobe to LeBron, and then Kobe said, nah, forget it, man. I'm going to play for another 10 years.
I think there's a couple potentials out there. Kyrie Irving, one of the most prolific players in the game right now. He's very fun to watch, very agile, good hands, great shooter, and he's very young. The downfall of him is kind of a little bit injury prone. If we want to flip over, let's look at Pacers, Paul George. Fantastic skill, could be very good. You know, there's a lot of players that just came up from the NBA last year that have potential, but obviously you got to see them grow. Nerlens Noel could be fantastic.
Could be. That's another.
You still kind of got to watch that for a couple of years and see where it goes.
The one person I kept thinking of statistically when it comes to just putting up numbers after numbers is Davis for the Pelicans. Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis. You have someone that he's throwing up there 30 to 40 points every night, and he's just a beast on the floor. When you actually get to watch him play, it's like no one really compares with him on the basketball court. And that's the only really comparison I can think of. But I still don't think that he's the, you know, he's not the next step. He's not your next absolute superstar. Because when LeBron came into the league, he was instant superstar. Well, are we going to see that next level instant superstar? And if so, who could it possibly be? And they might not even be in the NBA right now.
It's going to be a hard way to go from LeBron to the next person just because LeBron is built the way he is. And that's hard to find.
Well, people said that about Jordan, too.
Sort of, but Jordan's a typical looking basketball player. LeBron is not. I mean, the guy is jacked, he's huge, and he's not only big, but he's got great hands. Those are hard things to put together in a combo, and there's not players out there on that court that look like that. You know, so it's going to be hard to transition just because when you get into anything and you start comparing players and comparing eras, there is no comparison, and there won't be. I have not seen a college player that looks like LeBron James, size, skill, that can be that next person to compare that with. He's just a different type.
Who do you see as being that next superstar? Or are we? Is it weird to even say that because LeBron's probably still? I mean, I don't know how old LeBron is off the top of my head, but he still has so many years ahead of him that he could be that great for that amount of time. Where it's not going to really necessarily need another superstar because you still have LeBron.
LeBron is not going to be that long, and the reason why I say that is. He's had back issues for several years with the back spasms.
Which is what brought this up. This is what brought the conversation.
And when you look at his style of play, LeBron is good when he's driving to the hole. Can he do that for much longer? No. He'd have to rely on shooting. Well, let's look at those players prior to him with that big name era. Let's look at Kobe Bryant. He was a prolific driver and dunker, but what was he best at? Shooting the basketball. LeBron can't shoot the basketball. There are games where he blows up by all means, absolutely. But is he going to be known as a prolific shooter? No, he's not. He's 90% of the time absolutely awful. So he gets his name from driving to the hoop and dunking the ball.
Those big playmaker moves, basically.
And he won't be able to do that forever. He's a power forward, small forward. That's gonna end, and I think that's gonna put a lot of damage onto that legacy of his of being that next Jordan. When you look at players, you go back. All right, so you want to compare Michael Jordan to somebody. The next person you compare to Michael Jordan is Kobe Bryant, and the reason why is because they are similar players. They're similar style. They have similar attributes and size and skill. Kobe, losing it now. He's old. He's been hurt. It is what it is. If you want to look at that next player in that kind of a comparison, I say you look at Paul George. You want to look at your next big superstar, it's Kyrie Irving. The guy can put up 60, 70 points a night, any night of the week. He can drive, he can pass. He's a great player. He's your next big superstar.
But injury is his downfall.
Injury is the downfall.
When you have someone like Curry that is...
Also injury prone.
Also injured, but he's also putting up crazy numbers right now.
Oh, he is. I mean, you want to look at Stephen Curry this year. I think he's averaging 38 points per game. He's leading the league in points. And that team in itself, actually, I have that here. Your top two teams so far this year, and your difference between winning and losing point-wise, is the Houston Rockets with 13.8 points different. They're negative. Hold on. Toronto Raptors, who won again last night to make their team 4-0. They're 12-point difference positive.
Which is great. For an NBA team, that's a really great differential number, that you're winning by at least 12 points per game. Great. And then...
then you want to look at the Golden State Warriors, who are undefeated, and they're winning by 25 points per game.
That's insane.
This is the NBA. Minus it's early, and for most people who are fans of the NBA, I am. The first half of the NBA season is a joke. I mean, it's just pass the ball, shoot the ball, who cares? It's not till after you get to that All-Star game before it really picks up and to become good basketball.
Well, I got to assume part of it is an adrenaline rush for these players, that they're just kicking off their season. They've been working out, they've been training for so long.
Now it's chemistry building.
Now it's time to get back into it, and I think a lot of them are just exploding off the bench. But you're going to start to see that. Would you say that you're going to start to see that number drastically fall down as the season progresses, or is this a team in Golden State that could keep at least somewhat of that strong number throughout the rest of the year?
You know, I laughed during the summertime when they talked about who had the best chance to win the NBA Finals this year. And, of course, Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland. Well, guess what? LeBron's not that good. Let's move on. They don't have that team. How can you look at the Golden State Warriors and not go, they kept everybody. They've got the same team. They are still that good, and they are one of the youngest teams in the league.
Right. Good
luck beating them. Good luck. Their numbers aren't going to change, and if they do, it's not going to be by much. I wouldn't expect them to keep a 25 point per game average above their competition, but I wouldn't expect that to go much less than 20. I really think they are one of the most fantastic teams, minus they do live or die by that three-point shot. But more often than not, they're making it because every person on their team can shoot it, and they are all good shooters. We all want prolific dunks and highlight plays. Well, for me, watching guys step behind that three-point with a hand in their face and just drain it every minute of the day, Stephen Curry is one of the most fun players to watch because he is the best shooter. Period.
When he was
Ray Allen,
when he was at Davidson,
good luck.
That's all. That when you were watching college
was a
basketball,
one-man team.
It was insane to watch that team go as far as they did on his back. And every time he threw that ball up, you just thought it was in.
No,
it didn't matter.
You look
how
at
crazy. It didn't matter how crazy a shot looked. As soon as he let the ball go, you're like, that's going in.
No, and Stephen Curry is one of those players who's not the most highlight type player. I mean, he can break your ankle, he can do all that kind of stuff, absolutely. But you put somebody like LeBron on him, you put that lockdown defender who's got the size, got the reach, and he still doesn't hold a candle to him because A, no one gets a shot off quicker than Stephen Curry. Secondly, he is fast and he is agile. He's not dunking the ball, but he doesn't have to.
I like that you compared him to Ray Allen, because that's kind of where I see him right now at the end of his, towards the end of his, what was the end of his career. I don't think he's still playing, is he?
No, I think he's done.
Right, so towards the end of his career, where he was that guy that's going to sit in the corner, he's going to run a screen, he's going to get the ball and shoot. And that quickness that he used to have, that release for the ball, I definitely see that in Stephen Curry. So, I mean, I love the comparison between the two. I hope to see this more often than not throughout the rest of his career as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be a very long career for him, and I think they've got great potential. And the reason for it is, you know, unlike every other NBA team, they're the only team that 90% of the time when they drive to the basket, that ball's getting kicked to the outside. They're not looking for a layup. They're not looking for that. They want threes. They're going to take as many as they can get, which as a defense, it's different than every other way you play, every other night of the week. And these guys play so many games that it's just different. You kind of have to take that step back. Minus once you get down into the playoffs and you get to play them several times, it's a little bit different. But during the regular season, they're going to be a tough team to beat.
Sorry for our New England fans that we're not talking a little bit of Celtics ball, but in my opinion, it hasn't really been much to talk about in the last few years since the big three have been out of the works.
You know,
it's really tough to talk about a team like that where they're so young, and I believe they went to the playoffs last year, but it wasn't anything to sniff at.
Who plays for them?
Right, and as someone from Boston, my parents live literally 20 minutes from Boston. I can't name many players on that team. Isaiah Thomas, right? The younger guy.
Does Thomas play for them?
Yeah, and Bradley's a coach.
No, the young kid.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I mean. No. So I apologize for all the Celtics fans. You want to call in, you want to talk Celtics with us, we'll talk Celtics with you. We don't, because we really don't know much about them, and it's funny that that's just the way it works out.
You know, they gave up Rondo, which I understand, but at the same time shocked me. I mean, he's a good player to get rid of when you lost everything else. But, I mean, we'll see what they do. I mean, right now, they're not the worst team out there. They're not the best team out there. So, I mean, we'll kind of see what happens there. I do love the NBA, so I will watch a bunch of the games, and I will start to kind of focus on them a little bit.
When you turn it over to the NFL, just give me a call. I'll be over your house, because I won't be watching NBA pretty much until the playoffs start to happen.
Yep.
We got just a couple minutes left. You got let's go back to football just really quick. We got 4 undefeated teams left in the NFL. First time it's happened this long into the season. Who's your lockdown to be there at the end? And honestly, I'll give you my answer after you give yours.
I think the Patriots are. It burns my throat to say it, but I think they've got it done.
From strength of schedule, I really think that the Panthers have the better shot of going farther than the Patriots do in an undefeated season. It's only because there are games like Denver that scare me in Denver, where it's not late December where Peyton Manning, I'm not worried about him. This is still end of November. Yeah, it's going to be cold in Denver, but not so much that it's going to scare me enough. It still scares me that Peyton will do well with the offensive weapons he has.
I trust the Patriots more than I trust Denver. I trust Denver's D. I don't trust Denver's offense. Mm-hmm. Still, they're getting better, but I don't trust them. Carolina, as far as going undefeated, I think.
And I don't mean undefeated the whole season.
No,
I mean for longer. Who's the last team that's going to be undefeated?
The last team standing is going to be Carolina. They have it all. They have the offense. They have the defense. They have the young players. They have the drive to do it. And I think they are the biggest dark horse, the most underrated team out there. And they're playing without their best wide receiver, and they're just getting better.
So we're closing the book on Cincinnati. We're saying Denver eventually, their offense isn't going to be able to hold them. The defense won't be able to hold them, and their offense is going to crumble.
I can't open a book on Cincinnati till they win a playoff game.
Hey, I'd watch a Patriots-Carolina Super Bowl. That'd be fine with me.
Me too.
That works. I think it'd be very entertaining.
I'd agree.
So we got 1 minute left here on Huddle Up, our second week. Thank you very much for watching out there in TV land throughout Franklin County. We're going to be on break next week, and then we're going to go to our new time, which is from 2 to 3 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon to accommodate some schedules between JT and I. And we will be live. We'll be a call-in show, so we look forward to any phone calls. Again, we didn't get any today, but that's fine. We're here in case you want to give us a ring, and we'll field your phone calls. So, yeah, so until then, we'll see you guys next time.
Take care.